Welcome to the Twill Happy Hour. I'm not going to be able to pull off the opening announcement like Dave does. But I'm Jared, and with us tonight is our state rep from District 28, Tim Jimenez. That's out here in Tooele. Where all does your area cover?
Tooele City.
Come right in close to it.
Tooele City, the east half of Erda, Pine Canyon, and then kind of, I guess you'd say, the older part or original part of Stansbury. In order to get to my roughly 44,000, we had to carve out a little bit of Stansbury. So it's kind of a weird shape, but hey, it works.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Now, it's your, I believe they call it freshman term in it.
Yep. Not only the freshman term, but my first session of the freshman term. So
yeah.
I'm brand spanking new.
How was it?
Probably the most learning I've ever done in my life in one event. You know, much more intense than going on a mission or getting married or having a kid. It was pretty intense 8 weeks. 7 weeks.
Just for perspective, how many bills and other things did you have kind of come across the docket that you had to kind of freshen up on?
Most of them. We had, I believe there were over 11 or 1,200 proposed bills. We ended up having over 900 drafted. We reviewed over 700, and I believe we passed, was it 570, 580, somewhere in that point. So it's one of those things that is a little frustrating, even when I was running as being involved in politics. Is people who run tend to brag about, well, I got this many bills passed. And when you get up there, you realize some of those bills are really good, but at some point you're thinking, half of this stuff we're voting on is a waste of our time. You start thinking, bragging on how many bills you passed isn't always a good thing. Unless you can wrap it up and actually do something useful, sometimes it feels like we have some just ceremonial things that we're doing that don't necessarily serve any good purpose.
Yeah. Oh, well, of course, the new flag that everyone's extremely pleased about.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Well, I was one of the 35 representatives who voted to keep the flag we have.
Yeah. Look, if I was to make my comment, one, if you're going to pick a new flag, it needs to be the one with the Velociraptor on it. That's all that counts.
And if that Velociraptor isn't carrying a 1911, it's a no-go.
1911. Or, you know what? Anything Browning made.
Yeah, that's true.
It could be a Modus. It could be a high power. I'm not picky. But
that is the state gun, though. So
it is. 1911 is. And he could be riding a seagull. Or a seagull riding a Velociraptor carrying something else of Browning's. But that does seem like a lot. 900 bills that got pushed through.
Well, it was 700 voted on, I think.
700?
Just over 700 voted on. Some bills never... I had one bill that I had drafted up that just didn't get a committee hearing and died before it could hit the floor. Which
really?
Is, I'll just bring it back next year. I was fine with that. And
I had some
die in committee, and then I had two that made it through. One the governor's definitely going to sign, and the other one we're putting a lot of pressure on them.
So what bills are we talking about?
So the one that made it all the way through, and only the Sahara
Club?
Yeah, Sierra Club. Why did I say Sahara? I'm thinking Little Sahara.
I don't know.
I want to go down there and do some off-roading right now.
Sahara's from the desert is what you're thinking.
It was a plastic recycling bill that's been passed in 21 other states. It just removes some of the waste regulations. So when you're recycling plastic, it's no longer considered a waste stream. It's now a product. So it'll be shipped and handled as any other product, like when you're handling steel or raw oil that would go into plastics, it would just be handled as that. So it's a simple change in some language. It wasn't a big deal. It was an easy thing to do. And
why does the Sahara Club fight it?
The Sahara.
Yeah.
The Sierra Club thinks that
Al-Qaeda Club.
And the statement that I had from a few Democrats who fought this is their fear is that most of the people that'll be building these facilities are waste handling facilities, and they say those are in low income areas, so it'll adversely affect low income areas. My point is, we live in Tooele, where there tends to be a lot of waste coming out here. And I certainly wouldn't consider us a low-income community that's suffering because we have waste facilities. I think we want more industry out here for jobs.
Yeah. Well, when you look at more built-up areas, like if they were doing this in Salt Lake, it would be located probably near housing. But out here, we got space for days.
And I don't even know why you'd want to put a facility like this in Salt Lake with air permitting, with some of the other water restrictions that they have in Salt Lake. It's just more difficult to operate in Salt Lake. So I see if they build these facilities, it's likely going to be Box Elder County, Tooele County. Those are the areas that one of these facilities...
Just right outside the built-up area.
Yeah, but somewhere next to the freeway. Somewhere where all they're doing is taking plastic containers that have been washed, you grind them into beads, you superheat them into repolymerize it, basically. You turn it back into its base chemical and ship it out as beads. But the idea is, you got the Chinese, we ship them to China and Indonesia and these other countries are recycled goods, and then they just throw it in the landfill or throw it in the water or put it in the ocean.
I was about to say landfill. I think there's an island in the Pacific that proves you wrong there. We've got to fact check our local rep on that one.
Well, yeah.
China does not have a landfill.
I think they treat their country as a landfill.
They do. They do.
So there's no sense sending us making it more difficult to do something as simple as recycling. And, it's just another effort in trying to make industry be able to operate easier here in the United States rather than having to ship our industries overseas.
That's a crazy notion.
But that was an easy one. I don't think anyone besides a couple of Democrats are going to have an issue with that. The big one we're pushing right now is HB 427. And I call that individual freedom in education. So the idea is we take principles from the founding documents and from the 1964 civil rights laws, and we put it into code. It's a simple, small bill, but it says that when teachers, instructional material, displays, any training teachers receive has to prescribe to those principles. There's been a lot of pushes to do similar laws, but what we have done is said, okay, instead of trying to say, well, you can't do this and you can't do that, what we've done is approach it from a positive light. We said, here's the things a teacher should be doing and school districts should be doing in order to bring people in. I can bring up the principles. I don't have it memorized. For some reason, I just can't memorize lots of codes and language.
Out of 700 bills, you don't have them all memorized?
Not yet. I'll get to that point someday. Let's see if this comes up.
Did you go home at night and just like make it through the door, fall on your face and skid to a stop and wake up the next morning and head out again?
The best way to describe it is if you have ADD or ADHD, you'd love it because it is you're all over the place doing a million things at a million miles an hour and it never stops. I'd usually get there around 6 in the morning. And my day wouldn't stop till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And you have meetings, or you're meeting with constituents, or you're working on bills, or you have committee meetings, or floor time. It doesn't stop. So
either we need more reps, or we need to figure out how to lessen the role of government in our lives.
I think that constitutionally limiting ourselves to 45 days, having this be a part-time thing where we're not paid more than... So we get about $13,000 for a year's worth of work. Between those two things right there and having us have to sleep at night necessarily forces us to only push through the big bills. So you're allowed 4 priority bills, and those are the ones that you work on. And anything besides that, well, great. If you get through, great. And a lot of people didn't even get their 4 priorities through, and that's okay. It forces you to go through and take care of the important things first, and anything that's useless usually falls by the wayside.
Yeah, well, I think Texas only meets once every 2 years, don't they?
Yeah, they have longer sessions. They do meet every other year.
So their session would be, say, 90 days, but...
I can't remember how long. Ours is the shortest at 45 days, and 45 days counts through the weekends, so it's 7 weeks, effectively. You have 7 weeks to get it all done. And so this bill basically... The principles I put into law here that every
and
LEA...
this is that...
427.
427. It's kind of a education freedom bill or freedom...
Yeah, individual freedom and public education. And the idea is everyone's trying to address all of these issues that keep coming up with the way educators teach. And, having a brother that teaches and a stepdad that teaches, I understand some of the curriculum they may be getting is they don't want to teach it sometimes. So this helps educators and teachers have a code or a law that they can fall back on, saying, look, I feel uncomfortable teaching this. Well, now you have a law that you can fall back on with principles, and you can say, we follow these principles here in this school. And parents as well, when they have their kids go off to school, can say, these are the principles that any of the discussions on race and sexism and sexual orientation, religion, national origin, any of these conversations are going to revolve around these principles. So it gives everyone a little bit of insurance that things are going to be done in a way that's constitutional and respects people's rights. And one thing that we did put in here, outside of, it's a section of code that we deal with, but we put in one line that it says currently public schools may not sponsor prayer or religious devotionals, which, okay, schools can't sponsor religious devotionals. We've added to that, public schools may not sponsor or deny the practice of prayer and religious principles. We wanted to make sure that it's more than just schools can't do this, but you can't stop students from, if they want to say a prayer over their food or their tests.
Yeah.
Because
or if they want to start a Bible club after school.
That's their prerogative. Now, if it's going to be disruptive, we can have the discussion of, okay, if you're going to get up and start yelling at the top of your lungs for your prayer, maybe we move you out and put you in a hall or somewhere else. But you should be able to practice your religion within our government buildings.
Yeah. Yeah, and on your own, just so that it isn't forced on anyone else.
Yeah.
If I may add, I think that a lot of what the progressives are pushing right now, such as the gender communications and that, I view as a religion.
Yes. Environmentalism is a religion. They worship the earth.
So
humans are sinful, and we have to purge ourselves from our sins. Yeah. And the way to do that is, well, to recycle plastic, but or to buy carbon offsets, or to drive the right car, or to get rid of
humans, whatever. I mean,
to have a cat or a dog instead of a kid.
Yeah, but what I see is, I think that's perfect, especially if we can get them declared as a religion. And then when the teacher goes to hang the BLM flag or whatever new flag for LGBTQIA is this minute, I would have said this a week ago, but they come out with a new one all the time.
They're always changing the colors and the letters.
Yeah.
Which is why I didn't put any of that into code. See, the way that people have been always approaching this...
But if we get those declared as a religion, you can practice your stuff. You can even wear a BLM shirt, but...
You can't sponsor.
So long as it's not disruptive and it's not hanging on the wall of the classroom.
Yeah.
I think that'd be ideal, because I don't want to take away their ability to do it. I just want them to be recognized for what they are. And I'm not speaking negatively about them. That's just what they are. They act like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original sin, everything. I mean, go down the checkbook.
Yeah.
All right, go on.
Sorry. So here's the principles that we just put into code to allow teachers and parents and students to be protected. We'll start out. It says, and this applies not only to materials, this applies to anything that hangs on the wall, instruction, as well as instruction and training that teachers and educators may receive. So if you have a coach that has to go through some kind of training, and that you say, well, that coach, their training still has to comply with this. Everything that they do that in the LEA has to comply with this, as well as the state school board. We made sure we covered our bases. This is the law. You can't get around it.
How will this work when it comes to?
Well, this year we're
educational schools, like even such as University of Utah, because
this is K through 12.
What I'm talking about is the schools that teach the teachers.
Yeah.
Come out because they teach Paulo Gramsci's style of teaching, which he put activism and equality above learning. That was the priority of your public education, which, I mean, I don't know why our test scores are falling behind now. But anyways, how would that
the Woodrow
apply
Wilson
in that?
model of what Woodrow Wilson says, the purpose of school is to make a man as different from his father as possible.
Yeah. But he was looking to make people willing to go to war for him. Where Paulo Gramsci, he's a Brazilian sociologist teacher. and I haven't read his full book yet, but he was teaching that the purpose of public education is social justice.
And we're seeing that.
And we've fallen into
our
that.
teachers, unfortunately, the only way to get your teacher certificate is to go to schools that are teaching that. You're coming out of school indoctrinated, and you don't even know it.
That. Yeah, they're all that. That's why you compare an older teacher to a young teacher now, and they're night and day in the way they talk and think.
The teachers I had in school, I grew up in a very progressive town. It was a university town, and a lot of them were old hippies, people who had lived pretty interesting lives, and I knew them outside of school. I knew their political views, but they did an amazing job of staying very neutral in the classroom. We had very difficult discussions. We conquered and discussed big topics, but they were amazing because they stayed neutral, and I don't see that happening now. So the principles that we just put into code are right here. The principle that all individuals are equal before the law and have unalienable rights. And the following principles of freedom: that no individual is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, solely by virtue of the individual's race, sex, or sexual orientation. That no race is inherently superior or inferior to another. That no person should be subject to discrimination or adverse treatment solely or partly on the basis of the individual's race, color, national origin, religion, disability, sex, or sexual orientation. That meritocracy or character traits, including hard work ethic, are not racist nor associated with or inconsistent with any racial or ethnic group. And that an individual, by virtue of the individual's race or sex, does not bear responsibility for the actions that other members of the same sex or race committed in the past or present. And then it says, nothing in the section prohibits instruction regarding race, color, national origin, religion, disability, or sex in a manner that is consistent with the principles described above. So we still encourage people to have the discussion. You just can't make blatant statements and say all these people are racist, all these people are sexist, all these people were this, that, or the other. Or to say that you are somehow, because of your color, inherently a superior, inferior, oppressed, or an oppressor. It's a simple concept. And the only people that we're getting pushback actually from, the school board has not taken a position on this. The UEA, the teachers union, has asked the governor to veto it. And we're not veto proof on this bill. We need 50 votes in the House to be veto proof. We had 47. We need 20 votes in the Senate. We had 18. So the biggest thing is a lot of people, calling and emailing the governor, and we have groups and people contacting him. A lot of parents are excited about this. I even have teachers that are excited about this.
Oh, I'm sure, because I'm sure not every teacher, even young ones, are bought in or even still sold on this dream. And, they probably see as a definite wall to fall back on is a good thing. Why do you think, though, that the UEA is against it? What has their complaint been? I have read through the letters and the ask that they've made of the governor, and they've just asked him not to sign it. So they've just said, this is bad, this isn't why it's bad?
They said that this bill, their description of the bill is exactly what I said. This bill establishes individual rights, including unalienable rights and equality before the law. When you go to the website, that's the description, their description on their website of what this bill does. It establishes curriculum based on unalienable rights and equal treatment under the law. I was like, so you're asking the governor to veto it, and that's your description of what this bill does? Oh, no. Maybe work on the messaging there, pal. Come on.
We can't have this chicanery.
So I think a lot of it, and to be honest, I've talked to some individuals in education. The big fear is if this truly can get implemented, and we may have to come back and add teeth to it later. Right now, this is a reporting issue and a curriculum review issue. But this really probably will eliminate some positions. There are entire school districts that hire people to come in and teach a lot of teach against these principles. The idea that you come in and you teach people that, well, this group is sexist, or this group is oppressed, or this group is inherently has advantages, right? Well, you can't teach that anymore. So if your entire job description is to come in and do some of that diversity, equity, inclusion kind of stuff, you're going to be out of a job.
How much did they raise our school tax this year here in Tooele?
So there's 3 pieces of property tax that go to school, and the portion that our school district here, our school board controls, they chose not to raise it. But your school tax will still go up because the state still controls a portion of it.
I was just going to say, it sounds like trim a little fat, get a leaner steak.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of these people. How much are we paying
there's a lot of overhead.
The equal opportunity educator,
Too much?
Yeah.
If we're giving them a penny, it's too much.
Unless they're paying to come in and do it, it's too much.
And the truth is, we're paying more than just financially.
And they make more than the teachers, I guarantee it.
Oh, yeah. It's admin staff, so yes. That's the biggest issue we have with education is the fact that the people who are on the ground actually doing the work are the ones who are getting the least pay. And they get the worst treatment. Yeah, they're working the longer hours, they're putting the most effort in, and they don't get any recognition or pay for it.
The last time I looked at it, Tooele's superintendent made like $230,000 a year. And that was 10 years ago I looked at it, and that's just ridiculous.
Our members of the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives don't make that much money.
I know. Yeah. That's just ridiculous. And
I went into the wrong field.
Year, oh, yeah, me too. And every year, the value of the education gets lower. Every year.
We're valuing the wrong principles. We're not valuing education as in learning how to think, learning how to solve problems, learning how to be creative. We've gone to the point where I think we have 2 contending things. Obviously, we have the activism that's going on within the education system, and I don't blame all of our teachers. They're going to schools that have this inherently built in, and it's the way the curriculum's designed. But we also have so many tests, and you got to have this test and that test, that by the time a free-thinking, creative person becomes a teacher, all they've learned to do is teach to a test. And that's something I really intend to work on over the next few sessions in there. During the interim period, I want to sit down and figure out what we can do to actually trim the fat. Sit down with the state school board and say, what tests can we eliminate? As this legislature, we voted to eliminate that school grading system because it was ridiculous. It was not a good metric for measuring where teachers were. Ultimately, it's the parents interacting with their students and realizing, hey, my kid's having a hard time in this area. Maybe it's something we need to fix in the school. Or my kid's doing really well, and this is an area the school's doing well in. It's the parents that are supposed to be the check.
Yeah, they should be. And you, of course, have a lot of skin in the fight because you have, 32 kids now?
Feels like 70 sometimes. I have 6 kids, but...
Well, I haven't seen you in 3 months or something. I thought maybe you'd had 2 more in that time.
My wife hasn't informed me anyway. We may have. I don't see her much.
You were gone. I was gone at session. We might have another kid.
Yeah.
But anyways, no, you've got 6 kids, and that puts a lot of skin in the game. You're very, you're reliant on this school system being an effective tool to produce people that can go out into the world and be successful.
I think we all are, really. When we go out to our doctors, to our contractors, anyone we deal with and interact with professionally, we're assuming they have a good education and they know what they're doing.
Not just that. I mean, any movement you make, if you're, shopping at the local store, the person at the cash register, school is a function of society. But when you have 6 kids.
Yeah, we've actually, 2 years ago, we pulled the youngest 3 out and we're homeschooling them. And my oldest kids are 21, 19. I have a daughter who's 17. She's just finishing up at Blue Peak. So she's taking some cooking classes, some coding classes, and then she has an English class that she needs to, language arts is what they call it now, but she has to graduate. She just has to pass that one class. So, but she really likes the Blue Peak and the CLC programs up there. And my oldest, he went through the Tooele Technical School, so the TTC, and he has a diesel certificate. through that program, worked that through Stansbury High.
Isn't he on a mission right now?
He just came home while I was in
Oh, he
session.
just got home. Okay.
He is, next week he's going to accept an offer, and we think he'll be working over at Kenworth over there in West Valley. So
good, just around the mountain off of 2100, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
So he'll be making more than most people with 4-year degrees.
Good.
With a high school degree and a trade certificate. We're not talking a
Definitely.
2-year associate, just a trade certificate.
Yeah.
And I wish more people would realize just how well you can do if you learn a practical skill like that.
Yeah. And the practical skills, I think, are going to get more and more important.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially as supply line issues with some of our foreign countries that we deal with that are, getting a little more adversarial. We're going to need to bring a lot of those industries back home, and we're going to need those tradesmen and those skilled people, because I work on cars a lot, rebuilt transmissions and engines, and I work with him, and I could tell from a young age he was going to be a mechanic, because while we're doing stuff, it's things that I've done a million times, and he, 1 or 2 times through that process, he was faster than I was. I'm like, this is something I've done 15, 20 times. This is his second time through, and he's already doing it better than I am. Some people just have that skill and that ability.
They do.
I wish that our school system would develop that more, because there are so many people that really can't do well in school. They have a hard time and a struggle with a lot of these, the way you sit in a class all day long. They're hands-on people. But if you can get them out there and get them into the welding classes and the shop classes, they can shine. They can receive that kind of strength and that kind of pride in knowing that they can do something. It may not be reading some boring book or trying to interpret poetry, but they know how to tear an engine down. They know how to lay a good bead down when they're welding, and they can find a good living in that, a very good living.
Usually more than any bachelor degree holder will
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then they may not compete with, the advanced degrees, but most bachelor degree holders don't make what a welder or a professional mechanic makes.
No, not even close.
I mean, welders, if you want to be a traveling welder, you can clear $100,000 a year.
Easily.
And, yeah. So, I think it's good that education needs to be a focus. And we've got to, I think, through our, do I want to call it corruption of education? It feels like we've lost a lot of what this country was.
Yeah.
Because 1 minute we're rolling along, we're producing, people that were maybe even not patriotic, but could function in society at a normal level. And it seems like right now we're not.
Yeah, I think we've dumbed it down, and I think that's necessarily because we have prescribed grade levels and age levels as being the same thing. Our education's so locked into if you're this age, you're in this grade, and you should be at this level in everything, and that's just not the way people are.
Maybe
we all work at different levels, at different age abilities, and some things we're just never going to be able to catch on.
Maybe do a test-up system like Great Britain does.
Yeah.
Or England.
Even some of our charter schools, my kids, most of them attended Scholar Academy, and there within each grade, there's 3 levels, and you can still move in. So if you're doing really good in one subject, you can move up to that next grade level. So you can just, not within just the 3 levels within a grade, but pop up a grade. Or if you're struggling, pop down a grade or 2. It's based on the ability and not the age.
Got a good mobility. No, that's
and it's
good.
sad that you have to set up a school outside of the system through a charter school or go through private schools in order to get that kind of important structure, because within the public school system, everything's so set in stone and so rigid, you end up just teaching to the lowest level to try and get them up to grade level. And everyone else in that class suffers, and you end up with students who are just bored all day long because the teacher has to spend all their time with those who are struggling.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you there. Next question I've got. Looks like we might have a boom year for snow melting off the mountains and flooding. Has that subject come up in the State House?
Flooding, yeah. We've allocated money because we know that there's likely going to be, we call them water emergencies. These are either man-made or God-caused emergencies, not droughts. Okay. We very much made sure drought is not an emergency. You can't declare a state of emergency. The governor can't say, it's a drought emergency. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing. That's not a provision. But if there is flooding, we've set aside money, and we can declare a state of emergency and address those flooding issues.
Well,
We may not get the same kind of flooding that we had in the 80s because we had several very moist years stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
We've had some seriously dry years, and then we had a wet year. So
yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I know right up the street, the city is filling sandbags as we speak and getting them prepped.
I've seen sandbag stations where you can fill your own sandbags.
And that may not be a bad idea.
No,
you know?
especially if you live near an open ditch or near a stream or a low point.
Flood zone. Yeah. I'm wondering down in Grantsville how those people that live in that new
Oh my!
south of town areas, because
Yeah.
that's the old South Willow runoff right through there. So I don't know.
They're built right up near that drainage.
I don't know what countermeasures were put in there, but I guess we're going to find out. I remember in '84 filling sandbags in grade school. You know,
Really?
they had us leave class and fill sandbags because it was running down Cooley, and
Child labor's great.
it
No, but it was.
was a different time. You know,
They
40 years ago.
where I grew up in Northwest, 95, 96 was our big flood year. We had what we call a Chinook. So we had 2 feet of snow on the ground, and then what they call a Chinook. It's when Seattle's weather blasts over and hits us. So it went up to almost 60 degrees, and we got an inch or 2 of rain on top of 2 feet of snow. And they let everyone out of high school and just said, we're going to let you out of high school and assume you're going to go sandbag. And that's what we did for 16 hours straight. Got out of school that morning, and for 16 hours straight, everyone in that
That's
town
how
did
you
the same
save
thing.
a community.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
boy, you want to talk about building a sense of community. When everyone's there, all of the kids, all of the adults, everyone's
just
doing
moving
it.
down one street, just working the sides of the street, filling sandbags.
Yep.
You get to know whose houses you're protecting. No, that's good stuff.
But it could be bad in some areas, but I don't think we're looking at 1980s again because we had several wet years on top of each other.
Yeah, we haven't had a wet year yet.
Which is
This'll
good
be
and
it.
bad, I guess.
If we get 2 wet years, it'll be rough.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll wait to see. I know I saw one of our city councilmen the other night, and he was talking about it, about them getting prepared for it.
Yeah, and we should get prepared.
Yeah, on your personal level, you should. You should. All right. So you mentioned a drought can't cause the governor to call a state of emergency, which is good. I know that's been brought up.
Yeah, that was one bill that was very controversial. Fact is, when that bill first hit, I'm on the Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Environmental Quality Committee, just because of my background. That's
just because you're an
what I deal with.
environmental engineer.
Yep, exactly. And I spent years working for oil and coal companies, so I was in the permitting process and down in the dirt and understood those issues. And when that bill first came through, bear in mind, the governor can declare emergency and has tremendous power. And this bill was originally put forward as a way of saying, okay, here's an area where the governor's large scope of power, we're going to make this carve-out called water emergencies, and we're going to reduce his authority there so that he can't just come in and start bossing us around with water. We need to restrain him. But there was a 6-month clause, so he could declare emergency and it could last for up to 6 months. And there wasn't some of the other protections built in. So we said, okay, 30 days, and we added in there to making sure that the legislature can meet and override the governor anytime we want. So if the governor declares an emergency and we don't think it's an emergency, the legislature can just say, you know what, it's not an emergency anymore. Those are the protections we needed to put in. And these are emergencies like, let's say you have a terrorist attack and someone blows up a reservoir or a pipeline. We can declare an emergency, and if there's a situation where someone downstream needs water, a community needs water, then the state has money allocated to buy water from surrounding areas, from farmers, from other industries. And this is an important thing. They buy the water from that industry to bring into, so they buy the water rights. And there's a priority list there. Obviously, sanitation, drinking are the number one priorities. And then we step down to some of our critical infrastructure, our power and sewer systems. And then we step down from there to some of our other industries. So we make sure that there's a hierarchy of authority, taking care of people's
So you
needs
drew
first.
you drew guardrails around
Yeah.
the authority. Okay.
Because otherwise the governor could have just declared emergency, and then that would have been it. There would have been no guardrails at all. So the bill needed to pass, but I think a lot of people in the public perceived it as, well, we're giving the governor authority. What we were doing is taking his bubble of authority here and making a carve out over here where he was saying, if he's acting within this area, there's guardrails in place. Unfortunately, if he's acting in this other area for most other emergencies, he's still pretty open on what he can do. So that's an area we need to start addressing.
Maybe next year, you know, design it down. All right. So you ran as and you're acting as a Republican. Have you found any?
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Sometimes they kind of disappoint me.
Okay. Yeah. Oh,
but yes, I'm a registered Republican and have been since I moved to Tooele.
They disappoint me a little less than the Democrats.
Yeah.
You know.
Pick your poison.
Yeah. Have you found any friends or any people to work with across the aisle up there?
Yeah. See, here's the interesting thing. I think, you know, I have family members and I grew up around people who are on the other side of the aisle, and you get along cordially and you have your areas that you disagree on. Mm-hmm. Up there, it's actually very different, and it's even more cordial. It's interesting, especially with transgender issues and some of the other big issues that we tackled this time. You could be in a very heated debate on the floor over some of this stuff, and then the next, 2 minutes later, you're sitting down with that person working together on another bill. The legislative body up there is the most amazing thing. I mean, personalities always get involved, but when it comes to working on bills, everyone up there understands this is about the issues, and you don't dislike that person. You may disagree with their policy, but there's other areas you can work together on. I've worked with Representative Stoddard on he's from Salt Lake, a very progressive guy, obviously didn't like our view of some of the things we did on abortion and on transgender issues, and obviously didn't like my my HB 427 bill. But we worked together on some air permitting stuff, doing a halogen study, figuring out, okay, there's halogens out there coming out. These are chlorine, bromine, fluorine, iodine. Less likely fluorine and iodine, mostly chlorine and bromine coming into our atmosphere from, well, we know some industries produce them, but we don't have a full handle on where it's all coming from. And this stuff interacts with ozone to basically create that PM 2.5, so that haze that we see. Mm-hmm. We know it's out there. Some of the larger industries have some regulations. There's only so much that they can put out per year. So we work together to say, okay, rather than coming in and just saying everyone has to reduce or everyone has to do this or we're going to go after this industry or just that industry, let's do a study. Let's just have the DAQ, the Division of Air Quality, do a study, figure out where are the halogens coming from, how much do we have coming out, and from there they can start making recommendations and figuring out how we can work through the issues with halogens. And I was able to work with Democrats on that. And it's something that you wouldn't think, we could, but they came at it from we need to reduce and stop this, and I came at it from the view of working in the environmental world and for industry is how can we keep industry still functioning, but make sure we're also protecting our air.
So you can pinpoint where it's coming from. You can set up maybe standards for business to look into.
Yeah, and that's
eliminating,
the thing.
Or it can be like with any other pollutant. Okay, you can buy a credit to put this out, but you're paying for this because this is, should deal with downrange effects. I know government's real good at saving the money. They certainly don't. So ultimately, it would come down to when we're done, we'll be looking at the best available control technology, BACs, BACTs. So the state can look at this issue. They can make recommendations. We can go with industry and say, okay, what are some things that are cost-effective that could help reduce this in a cost-effective way that aren't going to drive you out or cost too much on the bottom line and still address our issues. So that's the way we can work with Democrats. Now, the truth is about 90+% of the bills that go through are consensus bills. They hit 70+% or 70+ votes out of the 75. Things like, we had a recognition day for the Hispanics in our community. And that was important for us as Republicans because we've been working a lot with the Hispanic community on issues like transgenderism, on abortion, and
it's important for the Democrats as well. So we were able to do a Hispanic Recognition Day.
Just easy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one that everyone agrees with.
Some of the policies on taxes, even we had them. A lot of debate on how to restructure our taxes, where to reduce, how to restructure everything, and we were able to get everyone on board with that. So it's amazing how often you actually get along and work together. So
That's good. Well, I don't want to just. It seems like the split right now. I've said this 1,000 times. The Republicans, when they were in control in the late 80s, early 90s, went crazy with trying to force science teachers to teach intelligent design. I think that's just a crazy notion. They pushed too hard. You had control and you abused it.
yeah,
Which is what happens every time someone's in power.
you mean people always abuse their authority?
Yeah, it just happens. You
Yes.
get comfortable, the chair's cushy, the people with the big fans are fanning you. It's a happy day.
Yeah,
The Democrats are doing that right now with trying to push sexuality towards children.
yes,
Some Democrats are recognizing this. Matter of fact, it's chased a lot of people out of the Democrat Party,
yeah,
national figures. But that's them. That's their religious push into government. Just like the Republicans did with intelligent design, the Democrats are doing with their religion of.
people always have to have a religion. And if you take God out of that equation, you've got to replace it with something. And it's going to be the planet or some kind of political philosophy. There's going to be something you have to
Tim?
worship.
You're right. No, I am an atheist. My religion is that the government will mess up anything it touches.
And that's a set of beliefs that you can ascribe to.
That is my religion. But of all the religions, mine has the most evidence.
Well, I'd have to say you're probably correct in that.
But anyways, no, but okay, I really like your education bill. I like your environmental bills. I don't like that we have these. I think industry should be allowed, but it should. In an ideal world, the people running the industry would look and say, I want to make sure I don't put anything out into this environment that's going to have negative effects.
Yeah.
Sadly, most of the people that own the industry are elsewhere. But
It depends on the industry. Like I said, I was in coal and oil and some natural gas companies, and a lot of them are good players, but you always have one or two bad players that throw the whole thing off.
well, okay.
But it depends on where you are.
Even in good players,
Yeah.
if they were doing it in their very own backyard,
Oh, yeah. No one builds
they
those
would
plants in their
put a
backyard.
lot more controls.
Yeah.
They would say, okay, how much dust is coming out? How do I keep this dust down?
Yeah.
If they're building it in their neighbor's backyard, they might say how much dust is coming out and is it crossing that fence? But if they're building it a state away, they might say, what do we have to do to comply with what that state wants?
Yeah.
And so that's, and I'm not speaking bad about them. They're just people.
Yeah.
I'm this exact same way. So I'm glad, I know we talked about this last time we talked. If they didn't put you on some kind of committee like that, they were up in the night. To put you needed to be on an environmental committee because you didn't come at this ideologically. You're a professional. And I think it's very good that they got you in there. I do. What other bills do you have, I don't know, that you want to call out?
I think one that Representative Acton put out there, I really like. When we're in schools, we're in a government-provided education-based system, right? And the school is providing an education that's supposed to be, I guess, neutral, right? The idea we take from the First Amendment that Congress shall, they can't establish a religion. We've kind of extended that to, okay, government can establish a religion or prohibit the free practice thereof. And similar to what my bill did with the allowing religious practices. It was a simple couple of line bill, and I can't remember the number now because too many numbers in my head. But it allowed for a student who was being educated, if there was a discussion that they felt was outside of their religious or their belief system, then they could ask to be removed. Now, here's the critical thing with that. If they say, look, I don't feel this is consistent with my beliefs, then okay, they could leave and go down to the principal's office. But they also have to contact the parent. And the parent has to have buy-in and say, okay, yeah, this is inconsistent with our values. That way, if they're having a discussion on sex or a discussion on maybe, like you said, the whole creation, evolution thing, if maybe a student doesn't subscribe to evolution and feels uncomfortable with that discussion, then they could be excused from that with the permission of the parent. Because the last thing we want is a bunch of kids saying, you know what, this is against my religious beliefs, now you got all the kids just taken off. I
would not have abused that one at all. But no, you're correct. And also that might help us getting buy-in on everyone declaring that a lot of these progressive ideals are religion.
Yeah. Because a student can certainly say, look, I don't ascribe to this. This is against my belief system, and not be in there, I'm an environmental engineer, but when it starts getting into a lot of this, man is destroying the planet with carbon dioxide, I start to get to the point where I'm starting to look at this from my point of view and say, that's way outside of something I feel is good policy, but I believe it's crossed into the territory of a religion for people. And when they start to teach that, it kind of goes, it does two things. One, it goes against the science that I've seen and counter to what I've seen and observed as I've studied the subject. But two, it goes against a lot of people's religious beliefs to say that God was an idiot when he created this planet and gave us something that's going to destroy it, and then just said, you know what, just by your very actions of breathing and staying alive, you're destroying this planet. Yeah. If there was a God, would he make something so fragile that we would just come in and screw it up by burning a source of energy that he gave us? Why would he give us that? But that's on the religious side of things. Evidence-based stuff, you got to start looking at the history of the planet and the way the atmosphere and the temperature have changed.
Well, that's the agnostic look at it. Both sides are. I believe that the environmental side is a heavy religion. Greta Thunberg is a
prophetess.
She's a pope. She's the environmental messiah. But okay.
Maybe pick a better messiah next time.
Okay, we're coming up on the close here, but I do want to. We're going to read through all the comments. We've got a lot to talk about there, but I do want to ask you: is there any bills that you think, good or bad, that the people should watch out for? Maybe something moving behind the lines that maybe even hasn't even made it to committee yet.
I think the big thing that we're doing right now is a lot of this tax reform. That obviously a lot of that's going on with discussions between leadership and the governor to get things taken care of. But we end up voting for things, and sometimes you have this big package and there's things in there you don't like. I'd say you definitely need to watch what's going on with the inland port. They've made some changes there, but I'm still not comfortable with everything going on there. The GOE, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, we're starting to get to the point where we're going out and I guess you could say pimping the state to international businesses and countries, and you start to blur the line, saying, are we going out and responsibly saying this is a good state to do businesses, and are we crossing the line and now encouraging certain businesses? Because we do have a set of businesses, business types that we are trying to grow, and others that we don't want to grow. And I think that's crossing the line into possibly some protectionism and picking winners and losers. And I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable with some of that's coming through. But so I'd say it's not specific bills, but just watching where some of that money is going and making sure we're following up on making sure we're doing our due diligence. We, as a state, sometimes I think we do a good job of keeping our budget under, right? We say, okay, we're going to not spend more than we're bringing in. We're going to watch where the money's going. But I think sometimes there's a mindset too much, because a lot of us involved in business, we get that business mindset of, well, how can the state make money? Selling alcohol to make money, selling some of our land to make money. encouraging certain industries that would make the state money, you start to ask yourself, okay, is it the job of the government to make money or to stop spending?
I would like to see our government work harder towards local entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have to say, call out for Tooele City. Tooele City has been extremely friendly with, I'm an entrepreneur, and it's been extremely a very friendly environment for me to work in. Now, the state, not so much. I mean, as an owner-operator, I have to pay a tariff because I don't have employees.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Piece that together in your mind.
That's ridiculous.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. I think Tooele recognizes, Tooele City and Tooele County, and really most of the cities around here recognize that because of the Army Depot shrinking, a lot of people have had to look to Salt Lake for jobs. And we've gone from being a very centralized community like we used to be. We've turned into a bedroom community. This is where people sleep, but it's not where they spend their money. It's not where they play. It's not where they do activities with their kids. It's people go around the mountain to do everything.
Yeah, and including most of the tax revenue.
Yep, exactly. And if I've really liked the way that the county council and the cities have said, we need to really do what we can to bring that industry back here. It would be great if our kids could start businesses here and work here in this valley, and that tax revenue was here in this valley. We have a lot to offer here.
And that growth, that societal growth. Okay. We've got to run through the comments. We've got a handful of them. So, Eric Gumbrecht, you know who he is.
Oh, yeah.
He says, what
We've
up,
knocked
Master?
doors together.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He says, what up, Master Team? All right.
I'm glad he's out there.
Yeah, Eric is a outstanding representative of the community when it comes to political movements and entrepreneurship and all that. I mean,
a good support and friend of mine.
Yeah, he's a great dude. Chad, we had Chad on a month and a half back.
Yes.
What is your take on the flag referendum?
I think it's probably a good idea. I believe, we're a republic. We have a republic form of government. We hire representatives to come up and do things for us. But the flag is one of those things where it's probably best for the people to decide what they want with their flag. It's the people's flag. Let them decide.
Put it on a ballot.
Yep.
Okay. I like it.
It's one of the few areas where you could say I believe in democracy rather than republicanism.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Eric says Wales has a freaking dragon on there, speaking of the flag.
Yes, true.
And ours
has a hexagon.
Yeah, ours is turning into a hexagon and
a little beehive.
Like a mountain thing. Looks like someone put the Highway Patrol, if I'm correct, put the Highway Patrol logo on the Utah Jazz background. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And then Chad says he'll go for a new flag if there's a Seahawk on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He and I are both from the Northwest, and he's a Sea Chickens fan.
Yeah. He
Most people up there are.
Yeah, I can imagine why, though. They did pretty good a couple of years back. David, our illustrious missing co-host, said ignorance of the law is no excuse. I can't remember what that one was about, but one of our conversations of the law.
I think there is some talk, though, of maybe putting more mens rea protections within the law. That way they have to at least prove criminal intent when you broke the law. In some cases.
That's a good idea.
I know that, one thing we look at with the EPA is, I'm in industry. I have no excuse for breaking EPA laws because that's my job.
Yeah.
But you got some farmer out there on his backhoe who accidentally tills a little too close to a stream or a creek. At that point, did they have criminal intent when they broke the EPA regulations and messed with a stream or a riparian area? Well, no, probably not.
Yeah.
No, I'm a fan of putting more mens rea protections out there for us.
And I think we need our criminal penalties to be done on a percentage rate.
A lot of countries do that.
And ours should be, because right now that farmer would probably pay the same amount as,
A mine
one of the
or some
larger
other
industry
industry.
doing the same thing
Yep.
that clears, a lot more commas would
Yeah.
pay. So we should do a percentage. Okay, you're going to pay 20% of what you made last month. And that's that, or 5% of last year's annual earnings,
Yeah.
and we need to go like that. All right. Where are we at? Got the Dragon, got the Seahawk. Okay. Fred Swain. And yes, Fred, I'm going to ask him about if he wants to go to class next weekend. We will see. 100% agree. I have 2 daughters who are getting certified in their field. The pay increases and opportunities come to those who get certified.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And there's a heavy opportunity. No one's going into manual fields or skilled labor fields anymore.
No.
And so right now we've got a supply and demand. It's split from what it was, say, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So people are looking for those skills, or even people willing to pick up those skills.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Fred also says, you 1911 people are out of control. It's a state gun, Fred.
Sorry.
Got to respect the state gun. The state bird. Do you know what state flower is?
Seagull lily?
Sago lily. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a state mushroom.
Do we?
Yeah, we just had it. That was one of the bills that came through, was a state mushroom.
Is it one of the ones that grow on the cow turds out west?
I don't know where they grow, but they grow around here somewhere.
Yeah. Out
They
on
grow
the
kind
cow
of
turds.
everywhere in the west.
During the deer hunt, every cow turd will have those psychedelic mushrooms on them. Yeah, yeah. They're just all over out there. Where are we at? Jumped. Okay. And it jumped again. Why is this jumping so much?
Develop the
Okay.
trades.
Yep.
Definitely develop the trades.
Well written, Mr. Jimenez. Okay. O'Malley May says, I'm late, but what are we doing about ESG and this thing's
Boy, it's skipping.
ESG
So-
and RCB? What's RCB?
I can't remember which one that stands for. There's too many acronyms in my head.
Yeah.
So we have passed multiple bills this session, working with Marlo Oakes, our state treasurer, working with, we actually got some members of the governor's group on board, mostly because the speaker, Brad Wilson, and the president of the Senate, Spencer Adams, went whole hog and saying this ESG stuff's going away. It's going to ruin the way we can run this state. And Marlo Oakes said, yep. And then John Dougal, our auditor, said, yep. So we've been working a lot on it. We've passed some pretty significant stuff. So if you're an industry that cannot get credit when you could get credit before, firearms, coal, oil, we have a whole list of industries that have been threatened with this. We have effectively said that as a bank, you cannot deny those industries unless it's based solely on their economic outlook. You can deny a company that does like coal basically by saying, look, I don't see you having a future here, or a firearms manufacturer that has poor credit, but that's all you can look at. You cannot look at the underlying industry that they're involved in. We've moved a lot of our state income as to, okay, where are we putting our state funding, our state retirement?
Vanguard pulled out of it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's particular because Vanguard is the biggest 401k servicer. And I think Vanguard saw the writing on the wall that
Other states are doing this.
a lot of states are saying, if you're into ESG, our 401ks can't go to you.
Yeah. You're not getting state money.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think some businesses were, and a lot of people were. A lot of people were starting to tell their corporations, I want to seek a 401k elsewhere.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing, is putting in the protections for every citizen. And that's where the real key is, making sure that the citizens' investments are protected. That all the company can do is look at the balance sheets. Does this company we're investing in look like they have a good return? They can't look at their moral views. They can't look at the industry they're involved in. They can only look at it saying, is this a growing company or not?
We've got to treat
That's
it.
our fiduciary trust. That's why we hand them our money for retirement funds.
Yep.
Your job is to go out and get me a good investment, a good return on my investment, not to look at their see specifically what they're doing. Now, if I, as an investor, want to do that, that's my choice. But you can't take my money and then just go make your moral decisions for me. I can make my moral decisions for me. You can't make them for me.
Yeah, and you can't gamble with my money to achieve your political ends.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's being addressed. That's all I can say is
Outstanding.
we have leadership that's 100% on board. It's great.
Now, if you want to jump on here and tell us what RCV is, I don't know what that is.
I cannot remember.
Fred says, Mr. Jimenez is my guy. We only disagree on one thing, but that's okay, and I'm sure that's the 1911.
I'm sorry.
He's a Glock 10 millimeter guy.
Well, I have a baby eagle too, a Desert Eagle 40 baby eagle too.
Nice.
I like that. It's also called a Jericho over in Israel. It's a great little weapon, but it's a lot more on the 1911 side than the Glock side. So
why do they call it the Jericho? Does it get destroyed by horns?
it can take walls down, even though I guess Jericho was the thing that got destroyed.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
They should have called it the Horn.
They should have.
I mean, the Ark of the Covenant might have been.
That would have been a better way to go.
It might have been a little bit of
Blasphemous.
Fred says, I love the fill your own sandbag option. That's very good. I might go fill up 5 or 10 of them tomorrow and just throw some sandbags here, next to the steps in case it does look like it might come in some windows. I can just put up a direction barrier.
Yep.
Mally says, I like the flag we have. The new flag is dumb looking. Very well said. This is the jumpinest.
Yeah, it's just going all over the place.
Yeah, the flag push, I don't know where that comes from.
Oh, ranked choice voting. Yeah.
Yes.
We have done some things to try and address it. Basically, if you go online and look at anything that Representative Jordan Tusher put out there, he went at it with several different angles. Representative Katie Hall tried to kill a study. Right now, there are several cities that are using ranked choice voting, and they have a sunset on those. I believe it's 2025 or 2026, and she tried to move the sunset up to this year, but that failed in committee.
And so that they can just pull the information and see how it did for a study, or
they're using ranked choice voting as a city, and it's a pilot study to see how it works and how people like it and if they're getting used to it. Jordan Tusher's tried pushing several bills to rearrange the structure. The biggest issue we run into is how do we address plurality in the elections now that we have signatures? And ranked choice voting was one of those things put out there now that we can have multiple candidates in a primary. And between him and Representative Jason Kyle, they have put together different ways of trying to address that. Unfortunately, a lot of what we've done his Senate hasn't approved of. Let's just say bills made it through the House that didn't make it through the Senate. And the idea is, okay, if we have a primary, we take the top 2 candidates and put them into an additional primary held
like
2 or 3 weeks
runoff.
later. Yeah. Some people say voter fatigue. Some say it's going to cost more, which it would, but at least it would give you a candidate winning with 50%. Tusher had another bill where you would take the top 2 candidates. You would sort of, it's not ranked choice voting, but when you voted, you would vote for 2 candidates, a number 1 and a new number 2 pick. So if you ended up with a plurality, then everyone would go with the number 1 or number 2 pick based on their ballots. It was kind of it was an okay method, but I think ultimately Representative Jason Kyle's idea of just saying, look, it's going to cost more, it's going to be a pain in the butt sometimes, but let's just take the top 2 candidates out of a primary and throw them into a...
That's how Chicago does it.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice,
Georgia
Lightfoot
does
is
it.
out.
Georgia does it that way.
They had
Lori
3
Lightfoot.
people. Yeah, she's out. I'm sorry. That was unfair to Mrs. Juice. Chad says, would you support bringing in schooling like the 1776 project from Dr. Robert Woodson?
That's a great curriculum.
Hey, I know nothing about it. I'm going to have to look it up later.
It was pretty good. There was a lot of moves under President Trump, under his Department of Education, to bring that in to schools. My issue with that is we don't need the Department of Education in the first place. But hey, if they're going to be there, 1776 is a good curriculum to bring in at the federal level. If we have to have a federal curriculum, I would rather not have any federal curriculum. It's not their job.
Yeah.
But at the state level, definitely, I think the 1776 project put out some great paperwork and some great history. And to me, it's always critical that when you're discussing history or social events, you still have to talk about the bad. You know, a few weeks ago, I took my youngest three, the ones I homeschool. We did a geology lesson at Topaz Mountain, and then I took them down to the Topaz internment camp so they could see what happens when the government says,
so you
don't have a Bill of Rights anymore. And we're going to take an entire group based on your national origin and lock you up, even if your family's been here for generations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they need to understand the atrocities that a government commits when it steps outside of its control and it looks at groups as a collective rather than as individuals. So we have to have those discussions. And 1776 allowed you to have those discussions, but it did what my bill did, those principles. It didn't lay the blame on anyone in the future. It didn't lay the blame on everybody as a whole. It just discussed the fact of what happened.
Perfect. All right, so RCV was ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
Found that out. What are you doing to push back on Biden's mandate for federal workers working in the state of Utah?
Compelled speech. That was my other bill that I was pushing through, which unfortunately, due to the timeline and the amount of bills we pushed through, it died. It was numbered HB 428, and it picks up on what other states have done. It takes these kinds of principles, and it says an employer can require training. When you're there, you work for your employer. Mm-hmm. You have tasks to do. But employer can't overstep your First Amendment rights and make you subscribe to beliefs that are inconsistent with your own.
So they can sit you down in a classroom and say, if someone says they want to be called Sir, you'll call them Sir.
And
but we're not going to require you to declare yourself on your email head.
Or if they have some of that diversity training that says you have to accept that because of your race, you're oppressed or you're an oppressor. And we had to be careful with the language on that. We can said because federal training and what we've seen in other states and lawsuits, we said if an employer wants to teach that they can't require you to accept it as a term of employment. You want to sit down and do this training and say, look, you're all racist and you're all sexist, fine. What they can't say is you have to accept it. Check a box. Sign your name. Because at that point, they're taking their belief system and not just teaching it to you, they're making you subscribe to their belief. And that's overstepping. They have a First Amendment right to talk and to put their beliefs out there. You have a First Amendment right to not have to change your beliefs in order to work somewhere.
That's a straight up struggle session to me.
Yeah.
You know, just having to go sit through that and then sign your dotted line and, you know, bow down and say how horrible you were.
That's a bill I brought up. Like I said, it was in a committee and there was just too many other bills that took up too much time and it died. But it's coming back next year because it was important to me that
is a complicated bill too.
Yeah.
I'm sure it wouldn't hurt to have another year to.
I want to make sure I get it right. And
also to see what comes down the pike next related to where you're trying to go with this.
Yeah.
You know, and then 2024 roll around and the bill doesn't matter anymore, and then 2028. And
yeah.
Anyways, all right, everyone. Let's thank Representative Jimenez for joining us. You also have a town hall coming up next week.
Oh, yes. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah. March 18th, 1 o'clock at the Tooele Chamber of Commerce. Right downtown. So, yeah, next Saturday, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, March 18th, come ask me questions, see if I can still remember all the bill numbers and the procedures behind each bill, and come ask me why I voted the way I voted.
Perfect. And reach out to him, talk to him. Tim has been one of the more personable guys I've ever met in my life, and I love it. And I want to tell you, next weekend there's a shooting school going on at the Grantsville Police Department, and if you're free on Sunday, you'll probably be going to church, but if you're free, come on out. Our instructor is at O'Malley May there, and Fred will be there as a coach and everything, but
not there with the 1911 though, will he?
He'll be there with a 10mm Glock, I'm sure. It's
Sunday. You have to worship at the altar of Browning.
If that's the case, I want to come out there with a 30 cal or a Ma Deuce. But come on up if you're free on Sunday, even just to see what's going on there and get a feel for your county. I know it's a day of worship, but you know, it's my church. But I wanted to throw that out there to you. I know you're a gun supporter also. Or if you're free Saturday after the town hall or before it, you can come on up.
All right.
We'll let you put some lead down range. But yeah, it's a good course. Everyone that goes through it definitely learns something. It's Saturday and Sunday. Yes, next week. But yeah, thanks for coming in, Tim.
Oh, thanks for the time.
Anytime. Seriously, thanks for coming. This has been great. You'll have to, I don't know, if there's anything we can do to help you out, let us know.
Will do.
Seriously, I love what you're doing. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This has been Representative Tim Jimenez, District 28 here in Utah, covering the Tooele County area. And yeah, we'll see you next week.